Hi, me again, Rice. It's been a little while. I know I said I was going to do a Scream review, but there were some complications with that, such as I'm 16, the movie's an 18 in the UK. Had to get a refund. But doesn't matter, because I'm finally back to talk about a movie I've been anticipating for so long now, and I finally get to talk about it. And that's The Batman. Directed by Matt Reeves, who I think is a really good director. I've watched Cloverfield, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes. I watched Cloverfield only last year, but the other two I'd watched around the time that they actually came out, and I always loved them. So when I found out that the same director was the guy making the new Batman movie, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be good. And guess what? I was right, because this film is incredible. Well, just because I was talking about the director, I'll say the direction is just, I don't want to say it's the best part of this movie, but it's definitely one of, because it's just such a beautiful looking film, and that's also helped by cinematographer Greg Fraser, who, by the way, is actually really up and coming. He's worked on Dune, The Mandalorian, Rogue One, and every time his work just hits, and again, it hits in the Batman, because every time you see a really well composed shot, that is Matt Reeves, but it's also Greg Fraser, so he needs credit where credit is due, because he really helps every shot have everything in it that needs to be in it, not be too cluttered, but also have a lot of detail. And these details make every set feel lived in and real, and not just like a movie set. And that really helps, always helps in movies where the world actually feels like a real world, especially in this movie, because the tone and the atmosphere is very realistic compared to lots of comic book movies nowadays, but not as realistic as Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, I'd say. I'd say it's actually kind of more comic booky than that. It's very comic book accurate, I would say, in the fact that it mixes realism with some kind of fantastical nature, because obviously none of this is going to happen in real life. A guy in a bat suit fighting a man who's murdering people and then leaving riddles behind the scene to get to that batsuit vigilante guy, that's not realistic. So the fact that they lead into the fact that it's not realistic, whilst also keeping the tone down to earth and sort of realistic, and that to me is just the perfect blend for Batman. Speaking of the tone, Matt Reeves did say before the movie came out that he took heavy inspiration from David Fincher movies like Zodiac and Seven, and that is very evident here, and I'd say that's in a good way, because he takes the inspiration but then makes it his own. And those two films are some of my favourite films ever. Because of how long the plot takes to play out, it allows for so much character development, so much just good scenes, and that's what The Batman takes on with a 3-hour runtime. These dark themes and this dark plot can really take its time to simmer and really build up for a really fantastic finale. But what I like the most is literally just from Act 1, Act 2, and just before the big fight in Act 3, is kind of just the build-up and the slow pacing of it, and not like bad pacing, it's just slow paced but in a very good way. It means the amount of storylines it has kind of interwoven into it doesn't feel jumbled up and too much to handle, because the film lets everything play out to a very good extent. If this movie never got a sequel, which I really hope it does, and I know it's going to because it's a major success for WB, but if it didn't, it would feel alright, because there's only one scene at the end, which I'll talk about in a second, which feels like it's setting something up. Other than that, it's good. Literally, it's like a standalone story, and I love that. And now for a bit of a section which might seem like I'm ragging on MCU and other comic book movies, but I'm really not, because I love the MCU. No Way Home, like I said in my year review, I really liked it. Really good movie. The Batman is so much better in every conceivable way. It's just, I have a problem with majority of modern day blockbusters, and that's just that they don't feel like movies. They don't feel like films. They feel like products. I love the MCU, but nowadays, most of them just feel like they're headed up by the studio, Marvel Studios, and Kevin Feige. They hire a director not to really make the movie, but to just do the movie, if that makes sense, just to put out the script that they've made already onto a screen so they can get it out there, get the money, put the money back into another project and get the project out there, and that project sets up another project, and you know what I mean, like it's an endless cycle. And I love the movies, but they never. I like Eternals because it feels like a closeout film. I like the Guardians movies because it feels like a James Gunn film. There's little pockets of light, like Thor Ragnarok, stuff like that, where you can feel a director's vision, but most of the time, it just feels like a product. But then you have the standouts, like No Time to Die last year felt like a movie. Most James Bond movies do, but in a sea of superhero movies that all kind of feel the same to a certain extent, don't jump on me for that, please. But in a sea of blockbusters that kind of just all feel like they're manufactured in the same factory, it stood out. Dune. I know Dune's kind of... Well, no, Dune is a blockbuster. It stood out. The Batman. It's a superhero movie, a comic book movie, in 2022, and it feels like a real movie. There's a reason Matt Reeves was inspired by David Fincher, because David Fincher's a good filmmaker. This feels like, and I'm not saying Matt Reeves didn't make a good personal movie here, it feels like a good David Fincher inspired movie, and not in like a really shallow way. It feels like it could have just I don't know how to explain it. It just feels like a good film. It's a really good film. It breaks the mold of generic Act 1 and 2 setups, Act 3 big CGI fight bonanza thing that Marvel Studios have been doing for the past decade. And I can't lie, it gets boring sometimes. And now I realise I have just kind of been ragging on you sometimes. So to get back to saying what I like about this movie, Robert Pattinson is the best Batman. That's all I have to say. I really like Christian Bale as Batman. I think I like him more as Bruce Wayne. Robert Pattinson as Batman, he's just amazing. He's the first Batman where you can really feel that he is the smartest man in every room he's in. Maybe except when he's in the room with the Riddler. But I'll let you watch the movie to find that out. Unless you've watched the movie, which you probably have because this review's coming out like 4 days after I watched it. But anyway, getting off track. He feels intelligent. He feels like the world's greatest detective, even though he still has room to grow. But he truly feels like you should be scared of how smart he is. Christian Bale's Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman, I don't feel like I felt like they were these intelligent beings. I know Batman can be kind of over the top intelligent in comics and shows. I'd say it's balanced here because he makes mistakes, but he's just a smart guy, and it's cool. And as Batman, he's menacing. His eyes tell you everything. His acting's so good. And I'm rambling here, but I don't really care because I feel like it's good rambling because this movie's so good and I could talk about it for hours. Zoe Kravitz, Catwoman, she's really good. She steals every scene she's in. I could literally say this about every actor. Jeffrey Wright, my favorite Commissioner Gordon. He's just like Batman's bro. He literally calls him bro in the movie. He calls him man. They're just guys hanging out and solving crimes together. It's cool. Paul Dano, he's an incredible actor in Prisoners. Love Prisoners. Love this movie. It's like a perfect movie for me. But anyway, Paul Dano, great performance as always. The Riddler, amazing. I'd say he's not Heath Ledger Joker levels, but he's like whatever tier is just underneath. Colin Farrell's Penguin is genuinely hilarious. If anyone tells you there's no comedy in this movie, they're lying. And it all comes from this man. He literally becomes the role. One, the makeup on this, this guy looks completely different, and I like that. It immerses me even more into the movie because I'm not looking and seeing Colin Farrell, I'm seeing the Penguin. But his line delivery is actually hilarious. Like, this movie balances any jokes it has with its kind of dark tone and themes way better than any Marvel movie can. The scene in Shang-Chi where he's telling his deep, depressing backstory about how he was trained into a killer assassin by his father, and then the flight attendant lady just comes in. It's like a bit about how she interrupted the story to ask about beef. And it's like, I don't care, it's not funny. Just get on with it and stop ruining the tone to keep your audience in check. Like, we're watching the movie, we're not gonna walk out because it's not a joke every 5 seconds. Well, unless you're like a baby. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Marvel movies, and not to rag on them again, they just don't know when to stop with the humour. I like it in Ant-Man or Guardians. In Guardians, James Gunn's smart, he knows when to stop it. But anyway, because they're comedy movies. Not every Marvel movie has to be a comedy. But anyway, this movie balances comedy, it balances all its themes and tones really well. It's just a good movie. And Batman has a really good arc about going from just this vengeance hunting, vigilante, to actually becoming a true hero and source of hope for Gotham. And I love that. The music, I nearly forgot about the score. See, I'm so excited to talk about this movie. The score, Michael Giacchino, God. He did the No Way Home soundtrack, amazing. He did this soundtrack, amazing. His Batman theme, it's gonna be iconic. It is already iconic. Obviously, it's not as iconic as the original Danny Elfman theme, but I'd say it's up there because it's so good, it's so brooding. It fits the movie so well, it fits Robert Pattinson's Batman so well. It's just amazing. Think of some hopes for the next movie. I'd say villains, I feel like Mr. Freeze would work really well. Mr. Freeze would be good in like a grounded kind of setting, but not too grounded because he needs to be a bit fantastical. Although this is very comic booky and not very realistic, Clayface I think would be really cool to see on the screen finally, because he's in Arkham City. He works really well in Arkham City, and that's kind of similar vibe to this universe. Anyone else? I want to see Robin, obviously not a villain. Robin in this universe would be actually amazing. If they get Robin and they finally do him justice on the big screen, it will be better than the Dark Knight trilogy. I don't care. It will be. Anyway, if you can't tell, I love this movie. It's so good. I gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd, and I think I'm gonna stick with that. I need to rewatch it before it leaves the cinemas because it's really good in IMAX. It's just so good. I'm gonna have to do like a video essay on it one day because there's so much more I want to talk about, but this I kept spoiler free because if someone hasn't watched it and they happen to click on this video and they're like, I wasn't really sure, I really hope I've sold it. I don't know if I sold it enough, but just to sell it to you now, go watch it. It's amazing. You won't regret it unless you're dumb. I'm kidding, but that's it from me for now. I might do a Euphoria Season 2 review soon. I'm contemplating because Euphoria discourse hurts my brain. If you follow me on Twitter, if you should, you'll see that. Because I was tweeting about it, but now the show's over, so you won't see that. Still no Scream review coming. Don't expect that. I'm still annoyed about that. Scream 6? I'll be 18 when that comes out, so maybe I'll review it then if I'm still doing this YouTube thing. Can't think of, Sonic movie, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I'm hyped for that. If I don't do a Euphoria video, which I should, I'll try. That's the next video, because I am so excited for Sonic and I'm definitely watching it the weekend it comes out, and I'm going to do a review. So yeah, thanks for watching to the end if you're still here. Hope you have a good week, and I'll see you next time.